welcome to Shelter Together. I'm Steve Castle, and with me today is Atalie Schwartz, Jackson Interfaith Shelter's Director of Shelter Services. On the last episode, we met with Shantae Patton, who's with TTI, who works with street homeless. When we did the survey with the community several months back, we received a lot of questions having to do with street homelessness, especially, so that's why we wanted to talk to Shantae right away. But then a lot of the questions were really looking at what is it that Jackson Interfaith Shelter does, how does it holistically help people. So today I wanted to bring in Atalie as our Shelter Services Director. She's the one directly making sure we have policies and procedures and activities in place that help move people forward. So thanks for being with us today and every day, I guess.
Thank you for having me. I love being here every single day.
Most of the time, right?
Most of the time.
Yes.
Most of the time.
So starting out, I would love just for you to share a little bit about yourself personally, because I think who you are outside of the shelter, what you've done before you were here, impacts and affects what you do here each day.
Absolutely. So before working here, I was a middle school teacher for 8 years. Loved my job. There were so many learning experiences through that on a given day. Mm-hmm. And what I found over time is that while the academic side of things mattered and I was very, very passionate about it, I really wanted to focus more on the whole student in terms of what was going on at home and what was distracting them from being able to learn. And while that mattered, there was only so much time and energy that I could pour into that. And so I started to just kind of think and dream, what if there was something where I could take that passion and focus on people more in that capacity? And lo and behold, opportunities arose, and here I am today. And I'm able to do that with, we have kids that stay here sometimes with kids, but also with adults too. And I love being able to love people where they're at and help them with what they need in order to find stability.
Great. So, kind of the first question is, how many beds do we have here at the shelter?
Great question. So I'm going to split that into two parts. The answer for all beds is 76. Mm-hmm. So we have two wings in the shelter. The first is the men's dorm that I'll talk about. We've got 16 bunk beds for a total of 32 beds. Mm-hmm. And it's like a big open dorm room. Okay. Then we have the family wing. And I say family because it's not just women. Mm-hmm. Husbands and wives or just partners can stay together with children if they've got children here with them. Mm-hmm. We want this, this is a non-ideal situation for kids. Like that can be really disconcerting, like where are we and there's rules here. So keeping them with their parents is really important. And so it's not just a women's wing, it's a family wing. We even have a room that we do our best to keep reserved for single dads with kids, where it's in the family wing, but there's like a door that separates that. And so that's a total of 44 beds. And instead of being one big dorm room, those are in like smaller rooms, which have 2 or 3 bunk beds per room.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And obviously the people that stay here, they get a meal. But one of the questions was, do we serve meals to people that aren't staying in the shelter?
Absolutely. So we serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner on site to our clients. And then right now we're also doing to-go meals through a window at the front of the shelter. So we have to-go boxes, and community members can come get breakfast at 7:30, lunch at noon, and dinner at 5. And so we say hi and give them a to-go box, and they can eat whatever we're having for that meal too.
And as you know, obviously, but people in the community might not. So we had always served the community meals inside the shelter. And because of COVID, we started doing to-go meals for the safety of them and our clients. And currently we're under renovation. And so pretty soon we're hoping to start having the community meals inside again. But for now, they're still to-go, which some people probably actually prefer that. And it's worked well. And so we're thankful we're able to make that adjustment.
Absolutely.
All right, another question that we often get. I know when I started my job, it was interesting. I remember somebody asked, okay, Steve, will you actually be the only staff member at the shelter? And I said, nope, there's a full team of people running a 24/7 facility with 76 people. So can you just hit on real quick what's in general the size of our staff? How many people do we have working here?
We have such an awesome team. So we have a total of 20 staff members. We have, you as CEO, we have our directors. We have Jim, who is our courier, who runs around town picking up donations and bringing them back to the shelter. Mike is our cook, and we're sorry to see him retire, but wish him the
Too.
best. He is an institution here. We love Mike.
30 years.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
And then the rest of our staff is comprised of our attendants who make sure that the day-to-day of the shelter is running. We do function 24/7, and so we have to have someone on site at all times, and so there's always 1 or 2 attendants on a shift at a given time.
So that's kind of the basics now. So kind of getting into some of the deeper stuff that we do here, because most important thing, we want to make sure somebody's going through some really tough stuff, and like they've got a warm place to be, they've got a bed, and they've got food in their belly. So that's basics. We need to make sure that's happening well. But then beyond that, we don't want to just say that's the basics, because we want to move people out of poverty and out of homeless. So can you hit a little bit maybe just on how is it that we try to provide wraparound services to move people forward, and just what's some of our philosophy on how we approach that? And I know some of your teaching experience, ties in with some of the normal processes that the educators do.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody is different, but we definitely see those common threads in needs that people have. Considering that we are a homeless shelter, step 1 is home. They need a home. So with our order of operations, so to speak, when somebody comes, they go through an intake process, we do a screening, and then there's an additional screening that is specific to their homeless history, and that gets passed on to Community Action Agency. We have a great partnership with them. They come and do on-site screenings. If a client's not available, they can get on the phone to help them. Because they need a home. That's really like the key to everything. So that's a process that we start very early on once they arrive. There's other needs that they may come with if somebody is struggling with substance abuse of any kind. We really want to love them where they're at and also encourage them toward a healthier lifestyle with that. So we have a great partnership with Home of New Vision, where we will refer clients over to them. A lot of our clients have mental health needs, and so we'll refer them over to Lifeways. And all of that happens during a process called a progress plan. And that's where, like you had mentioned, my teaching experience comes into play, because they all get that first screening with housing, but then I sit down with them and do this progress plan where we look at, do you have the forms of ID that are necessary for housing? If not, here are the steps that need to be taken in order to do that. Some clients are able to take that and run with it, and they're super independent and proactive. Other times, like if you haven't had to walk through that process before, it can be confusing and intimidating, because you have to make phone calls and different things like that. And so I'll help them make their appointments, coach them through what it looks like to make a phone call for that, make sure they have the numbers that they need. And this is like an actual document that we work through, and it's not something we can do all at once. So we have to touch base, follow up. They can always sign up to meet with me if it's like for a specific part of their progress plan. But within that progress plan, we're looking at, do you have mental health needs that we need to have addressed? Do you have a phone? If you don't have a phone, let's get you signed up to get a phone. Do you need to get screened with Lifeways? If so, let's go down that road. And some people are ready to launch into applying for housing. Other people just aren't quite there yet. So again, we just go back to erring on the side of grace, loving them where they're at, and helping them along. So for me, again, with that teaching background, touching base with them and really having mini lessons, so to speak, on how to do those different things, that's a big part of what I do.
And what I appreciate with what you and even some of your predecessors have developed with that is, you said everybody's story is different. And so if somebody already has a job and their house burnt down, but they have good credit, all that kind of stuff, it's a very different process if somebody has no credit, or they have a disability, or they're a veteran that, is disabled and has different needs. There's different organizations that partner with them well. Some, if it's getting employment, that's the first step, because they won't be able to maintain housing if they don't have that income. So it's just all those processes that mean some people maybe need 4 days to be here, others need 4 months. until they move forward. And so it's that personal progress plan is huge.
It is huge.
In that process.
I'm glad that you mentioned employment. So we have a great relationship with Michigan Works. Sometimes people can go straight to a staffing agency and they're like, I've got what I need. I just really want help finding a job. We get an update from Michigan Works every week. And right now there are over 1,500 jobs in Jackson. And some of them require a GED or a diploma. And if our clients don't have that just yet, we can get them in touch with Michigan Works to start that process. And so, employment is definitely a big part of that. We just started partnering with the College and Career Access Center. So they're coming here every couple of weeks to sit down and do like an aptitude test with clients who aren't quite sure what they want to do. And maybe they're considering whether it's higher education or doing something more specialized. They can sit down with them and work on what that looks like. So education, employment, and all of that is definitely a big piece of it as well.
So beyond some of those, partnerships that make a ton of sense, like getting a job or getting your birth certificate because you can't move forward on anything without that. There's a lot of other partnerships that you've helped to foster that some of them are just fun.
Yes.
So can you hit on some of those things that people might be surprised to say, oh, at the shelter they're doing this or that or have this cool partnership?
For sure. Yeah, we don't want people to have to just work all the time. We gotta do the fun things too. And it can be exhausting to like work toward that progress, which is important, but we gotta be able to decompress and find joy in things as well. So some people find joy in being physically active, and all of our clients can go to the YMCA for free while they're staying here. We have like a day pass that they can take, and it's within easy walking distance, so it's not far for them to go and take advantage of all of that there. We also recently started a partnership with Ella Sharp Museum, and this was really fun. We went on a field trip last week to the planetarium, and a few of our clients had never been to a planetarium before, or if they hadn't since they were really young. So we got to, like lay back and look at the ceiling. It was really fun. And then they got to do a watercolor painting. So there was a hands-on aspect to it as well. And we have an upcoming field trip with an avian experience. They're going to have live birds, and that's going to be fun. And kids get to go on that, which is so great. Like for them to have this like sense of normalcy, like going and doing those things. We have Jackson School of the Arts that comes twice a month. One time it's for a dance class, which is super interesting. And it's not just kids. We had some of our older clients doing plies and spinning. With a walker. It was so fun. And then Jackson School of the Arts also does like the hands-on art classes as well. And that's just a few of them. We definitely need to have fun here. I don't think I've laughed so hard. And I mean, like I taught middle school and laughed a lot. We have a lot of fun here as well with all of those things.
Teaching middle schoolers, you'll laugh and cry sometimes on the same day, probably.
For sure.
So another question is, because sometimes people wonder donation-wise, they say, oh, you're a shelter. Is money the only thing that we can do to help? So can you just hit on a little bit of kind of what we often can utilize donation-wise? Of course, financial stuff is super helpful because then you can use it in any way to help people. But what are some of the things that are typical needs? And then what are other things that maybe people think we might take, do we not, just because of limited storage and the partnerships we have that provide those things that we might not have on site? For sure.
So things that we use regularly, whenever a client comes in, they get a hygiene bag that has like shampoo, conditioner, a razor, toothbrush, toothpaste, that kind of stuff. So for hygiene products, that is something that we do accept, though we really prefer the regular size versus like the little tiny hotel containers. We get those donated sometimes, which we're very thankful for, but it's really the full size that's more helpful for our clients. So hygiene products are definitely a big one. We have our wish list on our website, which is super, super handy. So at interfaithshelter.com, underneath the donate tab, there's a direct link to our Amazon wish list. And so bath towels are a big thing. Whenever a client comes in, they get a bath towel so they can go take a shower. Blankets, it's getting cold right now, and we have like the longer twin size beds, and so a blanket that's not going to be like so thin that they've got to pile on a billion of them, but having a twin size blanket that's going to be comfortable, that's really helpful too. And I do believe both of those things are on our wish list. You mentioned renovations earlier. I know there's also like some miscellaneous tools that are on the wish list right now that are helpful for like the handyman, like day-to-day stuff that we need to have done. One question we get a lot is, do we accept clothing? And it is true that clothing is definitely in need of people who are experiencing homelessness, but we don't have a whole ton of space to take tons and tons of clothing donations or the manpower to sort through what to keep and what to not. So
we have every size from a 1 month old
exactly.
to 5X or whatever it needs to be.
So that partnership is pretty amazing. That's with St. Vincent de Paul. Whenever a client gets checked in, they get a letter of verification stating that they are indeed homeless, and they take that to St. Vincent de Paul, and they get free clothing, 3 free sets of clothing at that time. And actually, St. Vincent does that every 90 days, not just for people in Jackson experiencing homelessness, but for people that are living in poverty as well. So we always defer to St. Vincent's. If somebody shows up with a clothing donation, we say, thank you so much, this is huge. Please take it over to St. Vincent. Our clients will absolutely benefit from that donation, but that way we don't have to store everything. We can put our time and energy into things that also help to meet those needs. But then St. Vincent's is all about that. Like, take it over there, and they've got the manpower, and that's what they do. So I think that answers most of it in terms of what we need right now.
Yeah, and when you think of the practical partnerships, because we want people to have that self-sufficiency when they get out of here. So even the process of getting to St. Vincent, learning what they have when they're in their own place, now they know that they exist, because St. Vincent's, as you know, also has the starter packages. So if you're moving into a new apartment and you have nothing, they'll help you with furniture. They'll help you get pots and pans and all those types of things. And so we're setting them up to have that long-term relationship with that great organization. And so it's not just, even if we have the storage, we might actually still not want to, because that might be keeping them from learning about all the things St. Vincent's does.
And that's definitely an overarching theme with our services here. If we were to provide everything in-house, like have counselors on staff and all of that, our clients would benefit from that. But then once they're not staying here anymore, it would actually be a disservice, because they're not staying here, they can't take advantage of services. Instead, with the model that we have, those partnerships, they're learning what those services look like throughout Jackson, so that when they are transitioning to their own housing, they know where to go and where to get those things. If it was with us, then that service is severed. We only want to see them again when they come to volunteer and say hi. We want to see them for that. And if we were to have all those in-house services, we would be kind of reinventing the wheel, and we don't have to do that. We have such a great community here in Jackson with people who want to help those experiencing homelessness or anything like that. So I'm very thankful for that model. That's something I didn't really know existed until I got my job here, and it's exciting.
So mental illness, the question often comes up, is there 100% of the folks here have mental illness, or is it 0%, what in between? And but kind of in your experience and with some of the numbers, how would you say mental illness comes into play with the work that we do?
Sure. So whether diagnosed or undiagnosed, a lot of our clients do, they are walking through mental illness right now. And that's where our partnership with Lifeways is super important. We do have our staff trained with things like de-escalation. They went through ACEs training to understand what are different triggers that people may have based on experiences. But within Lifeways, they have a 24/7 crisis hotline that we can utilize. They come and do on-site screenings regularly. So some of our clients show up and they're already receiving services with Lifeways. And so they may just go on-site for those services, but Lifeways will come here as well. And then they also come and do coping groups. So we all experience stress for sure, but especially if there's somebody who has a more acute case of mental illness, like those stressors weigh heavier. And so for them to get coping mechanisms on how to walk through that, Lifeways comes and does that regularly. So we definitely see that. We always want to love people where they're at and understand that whatever they're feeling and experiencing is very, very real to them. So we want to be understanding, but we also want to help to diffuse if somebody feels like they are in crisis. But thankfully, our our partnership with Lifeways is very helpful in that way.
I think you actually answered several of the other questions within that, which is great. You talked about the staff training with the adverse childhood experiences. We had the de-escalation just yesterday.
Yep.
For mental health.
Mm-hmm. We had CPR and first aid training that came fairly recently. We definitely want our staff to feel equipped to serve our clients while at the same time recognizing they don't have to be the experts about everything that somebody may be experiencing.
Right. And we have, I think it's, this past year we've seen over 700 people stay here in the shelter, and so I think that's the reality too. If everybody's story is different, even if you are an expert, it might be the first time you've seen this specific scenario. So we need constant training, but also just have to be on our toes and use the resources around us. Another question often comes up because when you think of homelessness, then typically you think of poverty with it as well, without financial resources. That's not always the case, but it often is part of the case. So can you talk a little bit of what we try to provide as far as financial literacy and help with that?
Yeah, so Sheila comes from True Community Credit Union every couple of weeks and does a finance class. We also have a Community Action Agency finance class on off weeks that Sheila is not here, and they walk through things like budgeting and what does it look like to have a budget. What does it really mean to have a credit card, to borrow money, that concept of that's money I'm going to have to pay back with interest on top of interest, like that's there's an understanding or a misunderstanding for a lot of people in that case. And so we've got Sheila from True Community along with that financial class from Community Action Agency that comes in and talks to our clients. That's also something that during a progress plan, I'll talk to them about. And so if somebody says, well, I can't get a phone yet because I need the funds for that, sometimes they're hoping for, and do you have like just the money to give me to get that right now? And we have like a little mini lesson on, well, let's talk about getting to a staffing agency, saving up your money because you're not paying rent while you're living here right now. You don't have to pay for food. So let's talk about where your money can be, what your money can be saved for, so that when you do have the funds, then you can go and buy that. So
the down payment for your apartment.
Exactly. And I know Salvation Army sometimes can help depending on what funds they have at the time with a down payment or a first month's rent. And sometimes Community Action Agency can help with that as well for our clients.
I don't think I asked already, but can you talk a little bit about the ARE drop-in center? They're 200 yards from us. Because a lot of times people say, is there a day shelter, or is there some place for people to be, which they're not specifically a day shelter, but just can you kind of talk to the ways that they serve our clients, but also just non-homeless folks in the community?
Absolutely. Oh man, the drop-in center is great. First of all, the atmosphere is just a nice, chill, friendly place to be. Everybody there is so friendly. There's a pool table. People can rent a locker for only $2 a month to keep personal belongings there, which is really important because if somebody doesn't have a secure space to keep things at that time, that can be the answer. $2 a month for a locker. They provide lunch, they have coffee down there, and like you mentioned, it's really, really close, so for our clients to just get to walk a little ways to get there. But that's not specific just for interfaith. Lots of community members can go there, and I think that's so important because when you're walking through a tough point in life, it can be kind of a reflex to want to just retreat into oneself and to just be by yourself and not interact, but that's a safe place for people to go and talk to other people who may be walking through the kind of stuff that they're walking through too. And it's free. It's free to go and be there. It's really great when something doesn't cost money to go hang out. And I can't emphasize enough how friendly everybody is who's there.
And they specifically tie so much into the mental health things that you talked about, because there needs to be a screening for mental health to go there. And even if you don't end up having a mental health diagnosis, just because you got screened, you're welcome to use them. You can go there. But an interesting thing that I found when connecting with the drop-in center is 100% of their staff and 100% of their board members have to have some sort of mental health diagnosis. So they're all peers with lived experience. So as they're working with folks that are also struggling with different things, they've been there before and they've been able to come through it. So now they can coach people from a place of understanding. So that's that was something that I didn't know at first, and I was surprised to hear that.
Yeah, they get each other. It's important for someone to have an understanding of who's walking through the door. And I'm glad that you mentioned the screening. That was part of what prompted us to build that relationship more with Lifeways, for them to come in and do those screenings on site. The bus stops right in front of our building, and so people can hop on the bus and go down to Lifeways. But when we have the space and the capability of having screenings done on site, that's been super helpful. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that answers most of the pressing questions that the community asked. But as we wrap up, you've been here 6.5 months.
Yep.
Any kind of final things that you'd want to share, either highs or lows from your time, or just things that you'd want to share with the community that you didn't understand 7 months ago that you somewhat understand now?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. What I can say is that it's been a really awesome 6.5 months here. I'm so thankful to understand people better as a whole. I do think that homelessness can come with some stigmas, and for me to just get to spend my days among the awesome people who live here, that's been just truly incredible. I would encourage anybody who has questions about the shelter to come by and get a tour. Yeah. There's, within the community, there can always be scuttlebutt about different things happening at different corners of Jackson. Yeah. And so we'll get questions pretty often about being full or being closed. And it's like, nope, the shelter's never been full. This place has functioned nonstop, 24/7, 365.
Never been closed. There's sometimes a night that we might be full, but yeah.
Right, that we might be full, but never closed. And so, and it's been really fun. Whenever we start another partnership, I will go and tour the place that we're partnering with, and I always invite them back, like, do you want to come see the shelter? It's a cool place. Right. The renovations are exciting, but for them to see with their own eyes, like, we have a playground for kids. There's a playroom for kids, and for people to like have their space to just get to see that we want this to be a dignified, safe place for people to be when they're walking through that. I had not been here before my interview here, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit that.
A bad person.
Bad person. So for me to come and see it, it makes me excited. I've never been so excited for, do you want to come see where I work? Like, I want my family to come and tour and see this resource that we have in Jackson, and just how awesome it is. So I'd love to encourage community members to come, get a tour. I'm sure like somebody will be here and could do that for them, and I'd be happy to. Yeah, gosh, that's still such a big question. Like, in 6.5 months, anything else to say? Just, I'm learning that things take time. That things take time for an individual to, whether they're walking through recovery before being ready to talk about next steps, they're looking at walking through mental health diagnoses before being able to talk next steps. Just knowing that patience is key, and that if people are lacking motivation, we want to help them find what is that motivation for you. And it's a humbling thing to be able to walk through with people, but it's important. And I'm really thankful for the purpose that we have here at the shelter as a whole. And I take it seriously that my role has a big part to play in that. But I'm also just blown away that I don't have to do that alone. Our team here is so great. We support each other. And even the clients, like, acknowledging, wow, you guys are working really hard for us, and they want to support us. I'm like, this is too good to be true. Like, we just have lovely people who come and walk through our doors, and I'm thankful for that.
Well said. Well, it's awesome having you on the team.
Thanks.
Thank you for taking the time to run down, some of these things and to help our community know what's happening, things that they can be supporting, whether that's through prayer, money, giving some shampoo, or just telling their friends we exist, or if they know of somebody, whether it's a family member or somebody that's struggling with homelessness, have them give us a call so that we can talk next steps with them. So,
for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.